Is it possible for a soul to be born in the wrong century? Or are we witnessing the most calculated rebranding in modern music history? Tonight, we're looking at Angelina Jordan, the girl who once stood barefoot on a Norwegian stage and is now, in 2026, selling out the very same Vegas rafters once occupied by Elvis Presley. But behind the standing ovations and the haunting vibrato lies a series of high-stakes gambles, industry breakups, and a mysterious transition from a viral child prodigy to a fiercely independent mogul. The world fell in love with a little girl singing jazz, but the woman standing before us today is playing a much more complex game. It started with a promise to a child who had nothing, but it became the most recognizable trademark in the industry. To understand the Angelina of 2026, we have to revisit the chilling, Gloomy Sunday audition that first set the internet on fire. At just 8 years old, she didn't just sing. She channeled a grief that seemed impossible for her age. While most kids her age were navigating primary school, Angelina was navigating the heavy expectations of global stardom. However, the most enduring part of her image, her bare feet, wasn't a marketing gimmick cooked up in a boardroom. It was born from a chance encounter with a young orphan girl in the Middle East. After giving her own shoes to that child, Angelina vowed never to wear shoes on stage again as long as there were children in the world who went without. Critics initially dismissed this as a sentimental childhood whim, predicting she'd eventually trade the bare floor for designer heels. Yet, as she walked onto the Westgate stage in 2026, her feet were still bare. This commitment has created a unique psychological bond with her audience, but as she moved into her late teens, rumors began to circulate. Was the barefoot girl image becoming a cage? Some industry insiders suggested that her management, largely comprised of her own family, was leaning too heavily into the old soul mystique, potentially slowing her transition into the modern pop market. Despite the whispers, the imagery remains her strongest shield against the manufactured label that plagues so many of her peers. She isn't just a singer, she's a living story, and in an era of digital perfection, her raw, grounded presence is a direct rebellion against the glitz. But as the stakes grew higher, the pressure to conform to the Nashville or LA pop machine began to create visible cracks in her professional relationships. What happens when the world's most talented singer loses the biggest competition on television? The year 2020 was supposed to be her coronation. On America's Got Talent, The Champions, Angelina was the undisputed frontrunner, earning the golden buzzer from Heidi Klum and leaving Simon Cowell visibly stunned. When she didn't take home the trophy, the internet nearly imploded. Accusations of rigged voting and production interference flooded social media for months. But looking back from 2026, that loss might have been the best thing that ever happened to her. Instead of being locked into a standard winner's contract, which often limits an artist's creative freedom, Angelina was free to negotiate on her own terms. However, the path wasn't as smooth as it looked. Shortly after the show, she signed with Republic Records, a powerhouse label. Fans expected a massive radio rollout and a global tour within months. Instead, there was a strange, lingering silence. For nearly 2 years, her output was limited to covers and occasional singles. Rumors surfaced that there were major creative differences behind closed doors. Reports suggested the label wanted her to be the next Billie Eilish, while Angelina insisted on staying true to her jazzy, cinematic roots. This period was a dark time for her fanbase, with many fearing she would become another lost child star, stuck in contract purgatory. She was essentially a ghost in the industry she was supposed to be leading. It wasn't until she began working with legendary producer Toby Gad that the world realized she wasn't just waiting for a hit. She was learning how to write her own future. This era of her life proved that she wasn't just a voice for hire. She was a songwriter with a vision that didn't fit into a 3-minute radio box, leading to a massive shift in how she handled her business. In a move that shocked the industry, Angelina walked away from the safety of a major label to bet everything on herself. By mid-2025, the music industry was buzzing with news of a quiet termination. Angelina Jordan and Republic Records had parted ways. In the high-stakes world of music, leaving a major label is often seen as a death sentence for a young artist. But Angelina didn't disappear. She went rogue. She pivoted to a completely independent model, managed by her family and fueled by her massive social media following. This was a bold rejection of the gatekeeper system. Speculation ran wild. Was she dropped, or did she fight for her masters? While neither side released an official statement, the sudden release of her double album project, Secret of the Soul and Secret of the Star, suggested she finally had the keys to her own vault. The music was darker, more complex, and featured lyrics that many interpreted as a direct commentary on her time in the industry machine. Fans noted that her new sound was unfiltered, stripped of the polished pop sheen that labels usually demand. But independence came with a price. Without the massive marketing budget of a major label, she had to rely entirely on her Jordanites, her dedicated fanbase, to keep her relevant. This transition was a make-or-break moment. Critics questioned if she could maintain her global reach without the backing of a corporate giant. The answer came in early 2026 when she announced her residency at the Westgate in Las Vegas. She wasn't just surviving without a label, she was thriving. However, this newfound independence sparked a new controversy regarding how her career was being handled internally. With her family at the helm, questions about professional boundaries and long-term sustainability became a frequent topic of discussion in music trade journals, especially as the ticket prices for her live shows began to reach astronomical levels. Success always brings scrutiny, and for Angelina, it came in the form of a pay-to-play backlash that divided her loyal fans. The announcement of the 2026 Westgate residency was supposed to be a victory lap. It's the same stage where Elvis Presley performed over 600 sold-out shows, a symbolic passing of the torch to the next generation of timeless talent. But when the ticket portal opened, the mood shifted. Prices for front row seats were being listed for over $800, with VIP packages reaching into the thousands. For a singer who built her brand on being a girl of the people, who performs barefoot for the poor, the optics were challenging. Social media was split. Half of the fans argued that her talent was worth every penny, while others felt they were being priced out by an artist they had supported since she was 8. Investigative reports suggested these prices were a necessity of her independent status. Without a label to subsidize the massive production costs of a Vegas show, the fans had to carry the weight. Furthermore, the residency itself was shrouded in mystery. There were rumors of strained rehearsals and Angelina's perfectionism reaching an all-time high. Some insiders claimed she was performing through vocal fatigue, though you would never know it from the reviews. Every night she delivered a masterclass in soul and jazz, often leaving the audience in tears. Yet, the question remained, was she pushing herself too hard to prove she didn't need the industry's help? The Vegas era has become a litmus test for her career. It proved she has the drawing power of a superstar, but it also highlighted the thin line between being a prestige artist and being inaccessible to the very people who gave her a platform in the first place. She's no longer just a jazz singer. She's creating a genre that some are calling cinematic soul, and it's terrifying the competition. In 2026, the music world is shifting. AI-generated tracks are flooding the charts, and vibey lo-fi pop is everywhere. Angelina Jordan's response has been to go in the opposite direction. Her 2025 2026 original music is massive, orchestral, and deeply emotional. Working closely with Toby Gad, she has developed a sound that feels like a James Bond theme mixed with 1960s Motown. This isn't the music of a 19-year-old. It's the music of someone who has spent her entire life studying the greats like Amy Winehouse and Dinah Washington. But this evolution hasn't been without its critics. Some jazz purists argue she's selling out by incorporating modern pop beats into her soulful melodies. Meanwhile, pop radio finds her music too heavy for the morning commute. She exists in a strange middle ground, too sophisticated for the TikTok hits crowd, but too modern for the traditional jazz clubs. This identity crisis is exactly what makes her the most interesting artist of 2026. She isn't chasing trends, she's waiting for the world to catch up to her. Recent leaks of her upcoming collaborations suggest she might be working with major electronic artists, a move that could either expand her reach or alienate her core, old soul audience. The tension between her vintage brand and her modern ambitions is palpable in every interview she gives. She speaks with a maturity that often borders on the uncanny, leading to persistent, tongue-in-cheek internet theories that she might actually be a reincarnated legend. While those theories are obviously fantasy, the mystery of her talent remains her greatest marketing tool in an era where most celebrities share every detail of their lives. As we look toward the future, the question isn't whether Angelina Jordan will stay famous, but whether the industry can handle an artist who refuses to play by its rules. So, where does she go from here? Angelina Jordan has survived the transition from child prodigy to adult artist, a feat that very few in history have managed without a public breakdown or a total loss of relevance. By 2026, she has built an empire on her own terms, barefoot and unbothered. She has successfully navigated the labels versus independent war, the Vegas residency pressure, and the shifting landscape of digital music. But the road ahead is still fraught with challenges. As she enters her 20s, the prodigy tag will finally drop away, and she will be judged solely as a peer to the giants of the industry. Can she maintain her mystique in an age of constant surveillance? Will her family-led management team be able to take her to the next level, or will she eventually need the corporate machine she worked so hard to escape? One thing is certain: Angelina Jordan is the ultimate slow-burn success story. She didn't burn out like a firework. She grew like an oak tree. Whether she's a time traveler, a reincarnated soul, or just a once-in-a-generation talent, she has proven that there is still a place for raw, unadulterated human emotion in a world of machines. As her 2026 world tour kicks off, the eyes of the music world are on her, waiting to see if she will finally claim the crown that was predicted for her over a decade ago. The girl who started with no shoes now has the world at her feet, and it seems she's only just beginning to walk.